Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. The days are getting a little bit longer, the weather's definitely getting nicer, and the fields are really starting to green up. That being said, we don't have too much to do in that department yet, so I'm back in the woods again today. The pile that you see behind me is stuff that I've hauled up here and just stacked on this pile all throughout the winter and a little bit in the fall last year. My racks are filling up pretty quick for the firewood that we're going to use at the house, and this stuff behind me I'm going to cut up and then stack right over there. That's kind of the start of my pallet setup for selling firewood next year. So this wood, once it's cut up, is going to be stacked there. The last couple videos have been mostly about firewood. That's definitely not all we do here on the property, but it's kind of what the focus has been coming out of winter time when the weather's still kind of cool and there's not too much else to do. I wanted to talk a little bit today about the 3 saws that you see here in front of you right now. These are the 3 saws that I have here on the property that I use. I don't have a favorite brand. I'm not a Stihl person, an Echo person, Husqvarna, nothing like that. I just picked the saw that I think is going to do the job that I need it to do. This center saw here, it's a Stihl MS260. That's the first saw that I ever had. It was a hand-me-down from my dad. He had purchased a new saw. This was running a little bit rough, so I took it apart, replaced a bunch of the hoses inside and stuff like that. They were just starting to dry rot out. And we normally have an 18-inch bar on there, and that's what I ran on the saw for a while. But just probably about 2 or 3 months ago, over the winter, I rebuilt that saw. I bought, kept the same cylinder, but I got a new piston, new rings, gaskets, that sort of thing, and I rebuilt that saw. I'm only on the 5th tank or so I'm still breaking that in, adding a little bit of extra oil to the mix. And then when I had that saw, I purchased the Stihl MS170 just to use as a lightweight saw for limbing trees or cutting small stuff. Just a saw that I can work with for a longer portion of the day if I'm just doing light work and not really get as fatigued. The Echo over here that you saw me use in the previous video, it's an Echo CS590. That's the biggest saw I have. It's about 59 cc's. It's got a 20-inch bar on it. The other 2 saws, they both have a 16-inch bar on them. This is what I use for felling most of the big trees that are here on the property. I have certain things that I like and dislike about each of these saws, but for the most part I'm really happy with all 3 of them. They do exactly what I need them to. Cutting down a tree, I usually take the Echo and the MS170. The 260 is kind of an in-between saw that I'll use if I'm taking down a smaller tree. I'll take it down and cut it up with that. There's no way you'd be able to tell just by me showing you with the camera, so I'm going to hold off on doing that. But on the property here, even behind me, we have probably 3 dozen or more standing dead trees. It was something that started to concern me a little bit, so I contacted the forestry office nearest to us where we're at and had a forester come out and just walk around the property a little bit and take a look at everything with me. This was about a year ago that we did that. It was early last spring. And when he was looking at all these trees, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a disease, something that maybe I could spray for or they could spray for that would kind of slow or stop whatever it is that's killing the trees. He took a good look around, saw that most of the trees that are dead are either red oaks or chestnut oak trees, he said, which to be quite honest, I didn't know was even a type of tree. But he said most of those trees are dying because a few years ago we had 2 drought years in a row, and then we had 2 years of gypsy moths where they were real bad. You could come up here and it would actually sound like it was raining from them just chewing the leaves. So that's really, he basically explained to me that it's extremely stressful for these trees, and they can handle 1 or 2 years of stressors like that at a time. But once it continues on 3 years like that, it's really hard for the trees to come back. So a lot of dead standing trees. I'm still right now trying to clean up a lot of the stuff that's laying down. The trees that I did cut down below, like I said, they were just because we needed space for the septic system. They were dead standing anyway. I didn't want them falling on the septic system once it was already done, and a couple that were near the driveway that I just didn't want falling across the driveway that were also dead standing. Right now though, I'm not taking any more trees down until I get all the stuff that's cleaned up on the ground. Some of them are these that are falling, some have just rotted out at the bottom, but they're still solid enough up top to use for firewood. And the ones that are straight, that don't have a lot of branches, I'm putting those logs down at the bottom for lumber. I'll show you that in a future video as well. My dad has a wood miser sawmill that we're going to bring up here one of these days. It's a trailerable unit, and we'll cut up a bunch of that stuff so that I have a lot of oak. Some of these logs, the outside of them is a little bit punky, a little bit rotten, but that's not really a big deal. We can take that off because they're still really solid inside. So we'll get a lot of good lumber out of that stuff too. Some of that lumber we're going to use on the front porch of the house as decking there. Probably 1.5 by 6 or so is what we're going to cut for that. So now I'm going to do a little bit of cutting here on this stuff that's stacked that I showed you before, and just use a couple different saws. I usually use the MS170 on stuff anywhere from you know, small little branches up to 6-7 inches, and then anything bigger than that, I usually use the 260 or the CS590, the Echo. Anything that's over 12 inches or 14 inches, I'm definitely going to use the Echo on. It just cuts down the saw time pretty substantially. So like I said, I'm just going to do a little bit of cutting on these right here. I'll start with the 170, see what I can't get cut up with that, and then go from there. not a bad pile for cutting for about 25 minutes or so. To be honest, this was kind of a trial process for me. I haven't stacked logs like this, or just dumped, I should say. They're all different sizes, lengths, dimensions. You see I got some pretty ugly pieces in there, like that one right there. I don't think that I'm going to do it this way again. I got things out of where I wanted to, and I moved them from where they were a lot quicker this way. But it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle getting in there trying to cut everything. I didn't end up using the Echo saw at all today. I just kind of worked my way around the outside. I used the 170 to clean up a lot of the real small stuff that was right around the edges, and then I just got the MS260, both Stihl saws, and trimmed up a lot of the other stuff, a lot of the smaller stuff. Just worked my way around some of this bigger stuff. I figured it doesn't make sense to go back and forth between saws cutting. Usually what I'll do when I have a log is I know what I'm cutting for that day, and I'll just pick the saw that works for that. Sometimes I'll take two if we're dropping a tree and I want to limit with the MS170, but for the most part I'm just taking one saw when I'm going out. And I try to use all three of them as often as I can, just to make sure they get their exercise and make sure they're all kept up into good working condition. But thanks for coming back and watching another video with me today, guys. We'll see you next time.